Hello everybody, welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Kylie A. Today we are going to talk about my 2019 reading stats. I use a spreadsheet to enter all my books into and it creates like a bunch of statistics for me about genre and like how many books I read per month and author gender, author race, a bunch of stuff. And I just wanted to share that with you today. So we'll start with some basic ones. How many books did I read in 2019? I read 141 books in 2019. That's like crazy, even for me. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say. 141 books, that's what I read. So, yeah, there's a lot of books like that are used to compile these statistics for you, for me. There is a discrepancy in the number of pages. I have a number of pages that's calculated like through the spreadsheet. But then also Goodreads does like a year in review, and Goodreads has a calculated number of pages as well, and they are different. But the one for my spreadsheet is 51,078. 51,078 pages. That's awesome. Okay, so I am going to be looking over here a little bit because I have a laptop over here, borrowed my sister's laptop for this specific video and getting ready for it and getting ready my 2020 spreadsheet and everything else. Don't normally have a laptop, so this has been fun, but when I'm editing, obviously I'm going to edit in the beautiful little graphs and charts over here so that you can see too what I'm talking about. But so let's first look at like how many books that I read per month. So you can see that November is by far the best reading month I had all year. I read 24 books in November. Then my next best month was March. I can't remember anything particularly exciting that happened in March, but in March I read 17 books. Then in December here, I read 15 books, and then February and July are tied for 13, so did pretty good. Then my worst months, or my least read months, were April and May. I only read 7 books in each of April and May, and that makes sense, considering what was going on in my personal life at the time. It was just a hard couple of months. So, according to these numbers, I average at 11.75 books per month. That's a lot. That's pretty crazy. That is like 3 books a week. 3, 6, 9, 12. Yeah, 3 books a week. That's a lot of books, you guys. Okay. Now let's look at the ones that I think that you guys are find most interesting. So let's look at the genre chart first. I will say that I only started using this spreadsheet in August, and I took it from another booktuber who had like edited it and catered it towards her own personal like reading tastes and things like that. And so I have done that to the spreadsheet for 2020, but for 2019, since it was my first time kind of using a spreadsheet, I just used like what she had, and I didn't really make any changes. So you'll notice when you look at these genres that are listed, there are some weird ones. There are like a lot which I read 0 because I just don't read those types of books very often. And then she's included a lot of like subgenres of fantasy, which like I probably should have just put them in fantasy. But you can see that I mostly read fantasy. 52 books in fantasy, but then a dystopian is also fantasy, paranormal is also fantasy, magical realism is also fantasy. So I think that's 73, 74, 88, 94. So that's actually like 94 books out of 141 that are fantasy. So that's quite a lot. The percentage is a lot higher than the 36% that you see on the graph there. I read, 21 romance novels, 22 contemporary novels, a few classics, a bit of sci-fi. The ones under paranormal are actually sometimes it's kind of hard to classify a book's genre. For example, like the Sookie Stackhouse books, those are like contemporary for the most part, but then they have like, it's like vampires and werewolves like live among us. So actually they probably aren't. Maybe they are more, I feel like they're not old enough to be historical fiction, but like almost, like there's no cell phones or anything like that, but I think it needs to be at least like 50 years ago to be considered historical fiction. But yeah, that's what's under paranormal is all, I read the entire Sookie Stackhouse series, and also there's one particularly like V.E. Schwab's City of Ghosts, I think it was called, where it's like she's in the normal world, but she can see and interact with ghosts. Oh my god, goats. Ghosts and things like that. So that's what was in there. The one that's in dystopian, I think, is oh my god, what's it called? It's like, is it Aristotle and Dante, where they get a phone call to tell them that they're gonna die that day. Like that's like a really, like, how do you classify that? Because it's, I guess it's maybe sci-fi then. Yeah. So for the new year in 2020, you're gonna see this change. There's not gonna be as many categories on here. I picked only 10 or 10, maybe 11. I think I kept classics in there because I do occasionally read them, but so you're just going to see it separated into fantasy, sci-fi, smut, retellings, contemporary, historical fiction, thriller, memoir, nonfiction, and other. Yeah, smut's not on there. The smuts are all just under romance. And retellings are something that I read a lot of. And they're mostly either fantasy or sci-fi, but I would still like to keep track of like how many of that specific subgenre that I'm reading. Yeah, mostly fantasy this year, but I got into romance and I read a little bit of sci-fi, some contemporaries. Then let's look at the audience chart. Let's look at the audience showing like, this is going to show if I'm reading adult or YA. Let's see, where is it? Okay, intended audience. So I had 4 options when I was entering my books into the spreadsheet, whether I'm reading adult, YA, NA, which is new adult, and middle grade. For 2020, I added children's to that because there was a couple of books that I read this year that were probably even younger than middle grade that I read. So I read I read 59 adult, I read 50 YA, 16 middle grade, 15 new adult. Sometimes it's hard for me to decide if a book should be new adult or adult. But I am not mostly reading YA. I'm reading a very healthy amount of adult books and like a good chunk of middle grade too. But that was mostly thanks to Believe-a-thon, I think. Have patience with me while I navigate the spreadsheet. Types of books. Okay, yes. So you can see that most of the books that I read were part of a series in some way or another. I did read like 48 standalones though, and 6 rereads. I don't necessarily like that rereads is in there, but I feel like I do need to keep track of it somewhere. But like the rereads, I think all of them were probably part of a series. I know I reread Harry Potter, I reread Sabriel. Oh yeah, I reread the ACOTAR 4, so then I'm only missing 1. I'm not sure what other book there would have been a reread, but yeah, so those should be in series too. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. And so then the form. So then now we looked at the types of books. Let's look at the format. Actually, it's like a similar amount of like audiobooks to physical books. 61 audiobooks and 53 physical books. I just got a Kindle like in September, so I've read 9 ebooks so far. And yeah, at the latter half of the year, I read some graphic novels and some manga, so 10 graphic novels and 8 manga. I don't think there's really anything I want to change with that. They have like an anthology category, which I'm just gonna like erase. But I'm like happy with how that chart is, and I'll just keeping track of those things. Now I want to look at like diversity stats. If you're seeing where you see LGBT, mental, racial, and disability, if those ones were marked, then those were the only like if I marked it as racial diversity, then it didn't have any of the other, like there was no LGBT, no mental health, no disability rep, like only racial diversity in the book. And so I like that the category for multiple is like pretty high. The category for none, like 30%, I feel like, I don't know, like, I don't know, what do you think? I guess, like, put it in the comments. Like, I don't think that's too bad. I think that as readers, we tend to read books that we can relate to, and so being a white, cis, and straight woman, I have a tendency to pick up books with white characters and straight characters, especially like romances and things like that. I definitely really enjoy books that are diverse as well, but being that I gravitate towards, especially when I read romance, but I mean just in general, like books about characters that are similar to me, I'm actually surprised that the amount of books with no diversity is not higher than that. And I'm just gonna do my best in 2020 to keep reading diverse books. So we'll be doing our best to decrease that none for next year. Then let's flip over to see what kinds of authors I am reading from. Okay, so I had a little bit of a problem with this graph for 2019, these two graphs, because it's tracking author gender, but there wasn't an option to choose non-binary. And I know I read a couple of books by non-binary authors. You can see that I'm reading mostly female, and that does not bother me. I have less and less interest to hear about what men have to say about anything. So, yeah, not really interested in changing that percentage at all, or making an effort to read more male authors just in general. But I do want to increase the number of like non-gender conforming authors that I read and trans authors that I read. So I'm gonna be trying to do that, and you'll be able to see next year in my stats that I will have like a non-binary category. I've already added it to the chart for next year. Okay, and then for author race, I have read a lot of white authors this year. I am sorry. I don't have anything to say. There is no excuse, but I am going to do better next year. Yes. I just am. I'm sorry. Another problem that was with this chart was that there was no option to choose an Indigenous author, and I actually read quite a few books by Indigenous authors. So I think I might have put them under that multiple, but I feel like there should be more than that, more than 7. But yeah, so I'm not sure what I might have put the Indigenous authors under, but for 2020, I have added Indigenous to the options that I can choose. Yes, I am clearly, as the chart demonstrates, not reading enough of books and content by authors of color, and I am going to do what I can to change that for the future. Okay, that is all my charts. I realized when editing that I forgot to show this star rating chart. So here you can see a graph of all the ratings that I've given the books. I don't think that there's anything wrong with this. It might just be on the higher end because I'm really good at choosing books that I like. And that's all. I looked up the 2019 Goodreads Year in Review, and here's what it said. I think it showed that the most popular book that I read was Harry Potter. It shows how many pages you've read. I don't know, there's 2. I think I took 2 or 3 screenshots. Here they are. I'll be putting them up here. Okay, so just quickly, some goals for 2020. If you're interested in like specific reading goals that I maybe didn't already talk about, please check out my 2020 TBR video that I already made. I talked about and gave you lists of exactly series that I'm planning to read, books that I'm planning to read in 2020. I'm going to link it in the cards and in the description, so please feel free to check that out. Some things you should know about me in 2020. My channel goals is to get to 500 subs by the end of 2020. I am planning on doing 1 to 2 videos a week, which you will see on probably Fridays and Sundays. I'm finding that when I post on the weekends, I get a lot more views, so I'm going to be trying that in the new year. I am going to bring back reviews. I have not done any book reviews since my comeback in August, and it was kind of a staple in my channel before, and I'm finding that people are still watching them. People are still watching reviews that I posted at this time last year. That those videos are still getting views. So I think that I'm going to bring them back, and I'm going to try to do at least 1 single book review and 1 series review per month. For the single book reviews, you can expect them to be about 5 to 7 minutes long. They might be hyped books, they might be not. But I am not going to do a review on any book if I don't really know what to say or don't really have anything to say. So I feel like my reviews that I do, I am going to feel strongly about the book one way or another. And then for my series reviews, these are going to be less of like a critical review and more of a kind of trying to help people decide if they should bother with that series, basically, if they should read it themselves. I am going to look at like the series as a whole, at the diversity and representation within it, the different tropes that the author uses, and I am going to also try to split it into like book by book and kind of give you an idea of tropes that are used in each book and types of characters and whether the characters are developed well and things like that. And that will hopefully help you as viewers decide whether you want to pick up those books or whether you should keep going with a series if you already started it. So yes, like look out for those. I'm hoping to do 1 of those a month. I am not doing TBR videos for this year. I have a record of basically setting massive TBRs and then not even completing half of them. So I really don't see the point in doing that. So if I do readathons and things, you can, my Twitter is linked in the description below. So I will be posting TBRs for different readathons on Twitter. and on the different Discords, and I'll be just participating in the readathons on the other socials. I am going to be trying, I'm not a very creative person, but I'm going to be trying to make my wrap-ups non-standard. I am tired of a standard wrap-up where I talk and talk and talk for like 30 minutes. I'm just tired of those. I really enjoyed doing my November and October wrap-up where I ranked the books from best to worst kind of thing in the different categories. Yeah. So I don't know what other ideas I'm going to come up with, but I'm going to just try to do non-standard TBRs for this year. And my last goal is to caption my videos. All of them, I'm not sure. I did check out like kind of how to do it on YouTube, just editing YouTube's captions that they put. And I feel like without having a computer like at my home, it's going to be difficult. So yes, I have access to a computer at work, but I'm meant to be working at work, not spending an hour adjusting the captions to my videos. So I'm going to do my best, but I don't necessarily have the technology, but we'll see. That is my video. If you have any thoughts about any of my stats, or you think that I should be tracking different things that I'm not tracking, let me know in the comments, and let me know how you keep track of your reading. Have a nice day. Bye.